Good afternoon. I'm Gloria Nelson with TUG, and we are so glad to have you join us today for our TUG Connects 365 programming. As you settle in and get ready for the start of today's webinar, let me give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our online community of Infor distribution software users. Now, we've all heard the phrase that knowledge is power, and I can say with a great deal of confidence that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a little bit more of both. TUG webinars, online forums, and our member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter and with more confidence. And no matter how you slice that is a powerful combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And if you're not, please visit our website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do. So without any further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Paul Bushell, UnForm Sales Executive, and he's going to introduce the rest of the team for today's webinar. So Paul, you're leading the charge. Go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thanks, Gloria. So
Paul,
before we, yes,
just wanted to let you know you were in your demo screen, and
yes.
Now you're good to go.
So I just want to remind everybody quickly that if you open your Q&A bubble, you can enter your questions as they come up, and we'll keep track of those. And you can also open your chat window and make sure you're in everyone mode so everybody can see them. So again, thanks for coming today. Today we're going to talk about various tools that we have to help you automate different processes. So I think most of you on this call are familiar with our form solution that allows you to take the output from various ERPs and turn that into very nice looking professional forms and reports and deliver them a variety of ways to whoever they need to go to. But what we're going to look at today, kind of focus on is the stuff in here. So we're going to look at Image Manager, the archive, doc flow, and then we're going to show you, first I'm going to kind of step you through some of the capabilities of them, kind of individual capabilities. Excuse me. And then after I get through that, I'm going to turn it over to Julie, and she's going to show you what happens when you combine these capabilities into a process to automate, in this example, accounts payable. So again, we're going to look at some of the different tools and some of those capabilities, and then see what happens when you combine them all into a solution. Image Manager is going to be part of the focus today. It is a completely browser-based application to capture documents, and they can be documents that are, if they're already in an electronic version, you don't need to, print them out and scan them. We can just import them, and there's a couple of different ways we do that. I'll show you those. And it is completely browser-based. All the tools we're going to look at today are browser-based, so it's very easy to deploy. And then again today, our focus is going to be how we use the different tools to automate things. So some of those daily activities that can be very tedious and time consuming, like filing and indexing stuff, we'll show you different ways you can use the tool to automate those things and make them a lot easier to do and take a lot less time. And we'll also look at an example where you can actually take information off of a document, format it as an electronic transaction, and import it directly into your ERP. So the goal there is to eliminate, the kind of routine data entry that you have to do during the day, so that you have more time to focus on more important things. So again, we're going to look at automated capture and indexing. We're going to look at doc flow, which allows you to route documents for approvals and for problem resolution. And I'm going to show you a real quick, easy way to index inbound customer purchase orders as well. So let me jump over here, and we are on the UnForm main page. So again, it's a browser-based application. Can be on site or in the cloud, wherever you choose to deploy it. And then the goal here again is to capture documents and then excuse me, work with them to do various things. First thing we're going to take a quick look at is, before I get too far, I'm going to send an email And in it, I've got some vendor invoices. Notice I've got 4 different PDFs in here. So I'm going to go ahead and kick that off first. And then what's going to happen is we're going to bring those in and process those as we go. But before we see that, I'm going to just show you a couple real quick things here. So in the archive, this is the document repository. This is where we store and retrieve documents from. The way we approach it is we create what we call libraries, and they're typically groups of documents based on job functions. So you have an accounts payable, accounts receivable, order entry, warehouse, whatever the particular job function is, you can have a library with the different documents in it. And then as the documents come into the archive, regardless of how they come in, they're automatically linked together so that as you get to one end of a transaction, it's very easy to get to the other documents associated with it. So in this example, I've got a check that we cut to one of our vendors because it's got invoice numbers and PO numbers in the remittance portion of it. I'm able to link back to those documents automatically. And again, the PO we capture as it's printed, packing slip would be typically scanned in. The invoice could be brought in automatically from an email address. But then once they're in the archive, again, they're all automatically linked together. So you can get a view of the entire transaction very quickly and easily. So I've got a copy of the check, the PO, the packing slip. So, if I'm charged with signing the checks, I've got all the backup I need, to be able to review prior to signing that check and sending it on. So very quick and easy way to get to the documents. And there's multiple ways to search for them within here as well. We've also got the ability to launch from within different ERPs. One example would be from within either Web UI or CSD. From the inquiry screens, we have added, you can add these these web extensions, the Chrome web extension. So from within an inquiry screen, I can launch the documents associated in this case with this purchase order. So I could pull up a single document, or in this example, I'm going to pull up a copy of the PO, the packing slip, and the invoice from directly within that inquiry. So again, very easy to get to the documents when you need to review them, either from within the application or utilizing the UnForm browser-based retrieval application. Within UnForm, we have a concept that we call monitored inbound sources. So this is where kind of a lot of the automation can take place. So we can monitor different things. It could be a directory. So we can look at that directory, and as documents come in, I can define what I want to have happen to those documents based on these actions. So as documents hit that directory, I'm going to know what to do with them and know how to process them. We can also do that, excuse me, with email boxes as well. So we can monitor an email box, and as documents come in, we can pull the attachment off that email and process that document and do whatever it is we've defined that we need to do to that document. And all that happens as it comes into that monitored inbound source. It comes in through Image Manager. So Image Manager is the application we use to identify the document and then extract information from it. So it could be index information, it could be transaction information, but they come in. Here's the invoices that I sent via email. They're sitting in here waiting for me. Note that some of these have check marks. What that means is that as this document came in, we were able to identify who sent it, and then based on a job definition, we were able to extract the information we need for this particular document to get it indexed into the archive. If the full automation was on, all these that have check marks would have just gone into the system. So the only thing that would be sitting here would be any exceptions. So exceptions can be a couple of things, or many things actually, but in this case, this document, as it came in, it detected that it was a duplicate. It's already come in once. So it's going to hold it up, and someone's going to have to come in and take a look at it and do some sort of resolution. We'll have to figure out, is it in fact a duplicate, or is it valid? Should I let it go through? And then this document is simply a new vendor that we have not set up the template for yet. To do that, it's a very quick and easy process. I simply copy and paste what we call a job definition, and I'll show you this real quick. So if we come in here, I've got a, excuse me, I've got a standard job definition set up. So I just take it and I call it the new vendor, save it, and then, oh, I've already set that one up. So let me just show you this. So within here, I'm simply changing the mapping for the data we need to be able to index this document. So I want to find my vendor or my invoice number. I simply move my invoice number box over the invoice number, and then I'd simply adjust the other boxes as well. So I just, move these boxes to the particular data field that I'm trying to capture. Hit save, and next time that vendor comes in, it'll recognize it, and process it, and be able to index it. Now these job definitions can also be configured to extract line item detail. So the one we just looked at, it's indexing it and getting it into the archive automatically. But we can also extract the line detail from a document. And then once we've gotten that, we can create a transaction out of that. So it could be, the EDI-10I file. It could be a BOD. It could be, whatever it is you need to be able to import it into AP. And then once this job's finished, it's going to push that document over into the AP Invoice Center. I'm going to just show you one thing real quick here. So I'm not going to process all these. Let me just pick a few. So if I pick that one, I'm going to go ahead and finish these. And what this is going to do, it will finish these documents. And I'm going to show you a couple different things that happen. First of all, they'll go into archive. So you'll be able to pull them up in there. And these were also configured to push into IDM. So they're going into both the UnForm archive and into IDM. So you'll see as we get here, so those documents were pushed into IDM. And in this example, I've also got these set up to come into the AP Invoice Center. So they get pushed into AP Invoice Center. It's essentially, the same functionality you use to bring in EDI transactions. So that's kind of what we're piggybacking off of. So that's, one of the ways that you can use Image Manager to not only automate just the indexing of documents, but it also can automate the data entry on those documents as well. A couple of other ways we can help do things is, we have the ability to, in addition to reading, data off of it, we can read barcodes off of those as well. So if you've got signed proof of deliveries that you need to bring in, you simply set up a monitored inbound source. And based on that, we, define that they're pick tickets, and what they'll do is that job will read the barcode off of that pick ticket. That barcode represents the sales order number in this example. And as they come in and we run the job on it, again, all this can be run automatically. It'll read the barcode, get our sales order number, and any other information we want to be able to index that information. So that's a kind of one of an example of how we can use barcodes to automate that indexing process. We also have the ability, to pull data out of your ERP as well. So in some cases, this is an example of a vendor packing slip. Those come in, and this is an example of what we call a prompt job. So it's going to ask me for what the PO number is. So when I fill that PO number in, and in this example, I was able to click on that value to fill it, because it's a pretty good read on this document. But then once I save it, we can actually query the ERP and pull in any other data that we want to be able to use to index that document as well. So that's a pretty quick and easy way to get those packing slips in to the archive as well. One more kind of quick little thing here is we also have the ability to pull information from the subject line of an email. So in this example, this is a cool way to get your customers' purchase orders into the archive. So if you've got customers emailing you POs, you open the PO up, key it in, and then you enter the sales order number as the subject line, and then I'm simply going to forward it to one of those inbound email addresses that we're monitoring. So once that goes, it's actually going to run that through. It's going to use the information in the subject line to index that document. So it has the sales order number. So as it goes into the archive, it will index that document and pull in any other additional information that we've configured to pull from the ERP. Oh, I've run this one in a bunch. So again, it's in there, the purchase order's in there. It's going to be linked back to that sales order, the invoice, all the other documents that are associated with this particular transaction. So it's a great tool for, now you've got a complete audit trail of that transaction. You can respond to your customers' queries very quickly and easily. You can email documents from here as well. So real quick and easy way to get those into the system. One of the other things that we have the ability to do is route documents. So a couple of the typical scenarios are in AP are expense invoices and versus trade invoices. Typically, expense invoices get routed based on dollar value of the invoice or department or combinations of those things. DocFlow gives you the ability to create the business process in that doc flow, so that you define, who has to do what to a document and to move it along the path. This is an example, a fairly simple example of one we see for expense invoices. And in this example, each of the roles has a different threshold, dollar value threshold that they can approve. I'm logged in as an admin, so I'm seeing all the different levels in this example. But typically, if I was the branch manager, I would just see the invoices here that I need to approve. And so the doc flow, the docs are in there. The manager can come in and say, yeah, this one looks good. I'm ready to approve it. They can add notes, as needed. And we're going to log and track it as it happens. So then once it's been approved and I hit save, I'm going to forward that to the next step in that flow. And what's going to happen is the accounting department's going to get an email and say that says, hey, this invoice is approved and it's ready to go. You can go ahead and enter it and process it. So again, it's on the expense invoice side, it's different flow than what you typically see with a trade invoice. So the example I'm going to talk about here is for SX or Cloud Suite. So for those of you that are familiar with the AP Invoice Center, when you enter an invoice in there, it does the three-way match for you. So, assuming everything looks good, there's no reason really for a document to be put into a doc flow because it's all good. You can process it. If for some reason, though, that three-way match fails, if pricing's wrong, whatever it is, you can add that back to a flow. And that's typically what we see is that it goes back to the buyer. So the buyer would, again, receive an alert that they have document to review. In this one, we're actually sending a copy of all the documents that they need to be able to resolve whatever the issue is. So they've got a copy of the PO, they got a copy of the packing list and the invoice. So again, and also in addition to that, they can add attachments as well. So if they get an email from the vendor saying, hey, sorry, I fat fingered that price, they can attach that in there to that as well, and that would be part of that whole packet of documents as well. And again, once they've done whatever it is they need to do, they can save it and forward it to the next step in that particular process. So, the idea here is, to have those documents in a flow that helps to ensure, process compliance, of course, but it also, you don't lose stuff. You're not sending paper back and forth. And again, these are configured based on whatever your particular processes are. So you can build them out, very elaborate ones, or of course, and some of them are just, very simple. Goes to one person, they fix it, goes back, and they take care of it. And again, we're going to log and track everything that happens as it moves through that flow, so that you can go back and if you need to audit the transaction, you have all those actions and who did what, and when available to you. So again, a lot of stuff there, but a lot of little tips and tricks and tools that you can use to automate things. What we're going to do now, I'm going to turn it over to Julie, and she's going to show you what you can do when you combine these things into a business process. So Julie, do you want to go ahead and take over?
Okay. Sure, Paul, happy to. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. I'll take it from you.
Sure.
Okay. All right. All right. So my screen is going to look very similar to what Paul's is. We're still showing the UnForm process. We're showing the software that comes with UnForm for archiving, for image management, and for doc flow. And I'm using the same version, 10.0. So I'm using the same version, except I'm going to be showing the process instead of with SX.e. I'm going to be showing it with another one of Infor ERPs, and that's the FACTS ERP. So it's a little different in how the processing happens inside the ERP, but the flow is very similar. So I'm going to show you the other side of the coin, so to speak. What happens if you don't have an image manager to handle exceptions? So that will be what my flow will look like today. So again, I'm starting with my image manager, and we do have that monitored email address. For time's sake, I already brought in those 4 little invoices similar to what Paul was showing. So I've got Bunny Rabbit Farms and Shoemaker and so forth. So I've got those same 4 invoices here. Before I start showing the process, I want to explain that this is a very configurable product. So you can outline what your process flow is and then utilize the software to accomplish the automation. And that's what we've done on the FACTS side. So for those people who are running FACTS, we've done some actual applications that are a little different to handle those exceptions that happen in accounts payable. So if you have a piece of paper in front of you that's a vendor invoice and you're trying to match, you're trying to do your 3-way match to your system, you're looking at things like you may have a discount on your invoice that you didn't have in your purchase order. You could have freight, or you could have wrong pricing, wrong quantities, all kinds of things at the detail level of your purchase order that don't match your invoice. So what do you want to have happen when those actions happen? What would be your response to those kind of discrepancies? All right, so I've got my 4 invoices. And as you can see, let me bring this over a little bit so that you can see my actual invoice. I've got the 4 of them, they're here, and I can take them all and bring them in to my system by running a script, right? So I'm gonna take the documents and I'm going to run a script on them, and I'm going to run the job. And this is my FACTS AP demo job. So that's the one I'm going to run here. And I'll run the job real quickly, and it's going to process those documents and do some things with them. All right, so we've got those processed. The jobs have run. And now you'll see, as Paul explained, I've got these check marks because it was able to identify everything it needed from the document itself to know what to do with this document. That's all part of the mapping flow. And it's the same thing in FACTS as it is in SX.e or Cloud Suite. You tell the system, where is my purchase order on this document? How do I find the numbers I need to validate to, and so forth. So that process is exactly the same. All right, and we've got our documents ready to be brought in. So I'm going to take them now and transfer them into the system. So I'm going to upload them. And as I do the transfer, those documents will disappear from my list, and it's going to transfer those 4 documents into my FACTS system. So on the Cloud Suite SX.e side, it would bring them in as EDI type documents into the Invoice Center. On the FACTS side, to relate the two, it's going to bring it into the PO invoice receiving section of your system. All right, so, and it does 2 things. So it transferred them. It also brought them into the archiving portion. So you'll be able to see, your AP documents in your archive, just like you can on the SX.e Cloud Suite side. Okay, so our documents now are no longer in the image manager. They've been uploaded. Okay, might still be processing here. I just want to make sure that finished. All right, and then we're going to go over to FACTS and look and see what happened to those documents. So if we look at the invoice receipt entry screen and we do a lookup now, we're going to see our documents, and we don't. So something didn't happen. Let me just see what's going on.
Oh,
No, it looks like they didn't all transfer. So let me try that again.
I think you need to run the job on it.
Oh, okay. I thought I did that. I ran the
think
job.
you did.
I ran the job. Yeah, that happened. It ran.
Looks good.
Yeah, that finished.
And they're gone.
Let's see if they're there. Let's see. With any luck, this is live TV, folks. It is not. Okay. So imagine, if you will, your invoices would have come into your PO invoice receipt register area here. And then of course you would run your register. Now in my perfect world example, what would have happened would be that 2 of my documents that were in this image, which are here, right? I mean, they're gone from here. So it definitely took them. So they're out of here. But if they couldn't match my PO, what would have happened next is the ones that matched and could flow through would have been in my PO invoice receiving register. I would have run my register and it would have created the AP documents in my AP system. But the ones that couldn't go through would end up in my doc flow. So I might see, for example, things in here in my flows where we didn't have a match. And what we have done is we've accounted for those situations where we don't have a match, and we've given you a way to process them and continue the process depending on the circumstance. Okay, so let's talk about those for a minute. And I don't have good examples here, but so I can't show you the actions either. All right, I'm sorry, this is not going well technology-wise. So I'll talk through it. I would be here in my issues. So I might have one that needed approval. So I could send that document to somebody for an approval step. I may have one that was a drop ship and may take some additional work. I might need to, add freight to it, things like that, before I can finish the AP match and then also invoice my customer for the drop ship. The other thing that could happen is I could have things in a pending state, which would be an example of where I had a mismatch. So we created 4 different actions. And again, this is very configurable, so you can decide what you would want the actions to be. And if you think about what you would do in FACTS, you may have one of the situations where there was freight on the invoice, but it wasn't on the PO. That's a very common one. So in FACTS, you have an uninventoried item called freight, and our job definition actually would create the item code on the invoice receipt so that the lines would match up. It would map the freight to that uninventoried item, and then that invoice would process through. One of the most common exceptions is we have not received the PO, but we still want to be able to know that we have this invoice already in our archive. So we know about the invoice. We know that we can start looking at the totals and see if they match. And if they don't, we can do something about it after the fact, but we can't do anything with that invoice in FACTS until the PO is received. So we can have a pending area for POs that haven't been received, and we could put a time frame on them to say, wait 3 more days and then try again. And in 3 days, it would process again. And again, if the PO hasn't been received, it'll go back into pending for another 3 days. What happens if the dollars don't match? Well, we can have a write-off to cost of goods sold, for example. So that's another job property that we created on the FACTS side, so that we could take the document and process it through, but put it off to a GL account that we're going to deal with after the fact. It could be something called, discrepancy account, or it could just be written off to cost of goods sold. There's a slight difference, but we want to match the PO to the invoice so that we can pay the vendor. So all of those different actions can happen, but you just have to think about the flow. If you were entering the invoice manually, you were putting it in, what kind of discrepancies do you have when you're putting in your AP invoice? It would be tax, maybe, it could be freight, it could be a discrepancy amount. It could be that the cost of the item wasn't correct. So what would you want to have happen in your doc flow? The tools in your toolbox here with the UnForm process, even though mine isn't working today, something on my end, not with the product, it allows you to compensate and make those adjustments so that everything can flow, but you're not entering the whole invoice manually. The time savings is incredible. And the other thing that's incredible is when you go into a vendor inquiry, right? And if I were to look up, Bunny Rabbit Farms or one of my vendors, I can easily get to all of those documents that are out there. I'll bring up another vendor that might actually have something here. And my invoices can be in the archive itself. So I don't have to go to the file cabinet and file all of those documents. I have a link back to my, invoices, and I can drill right into the archived PO, the archived register, into the AP invoice itself, if it was one of those that processed through the archive. And I can get very easily to those documents without having to go to the file cabinet. Okay, Paul, I apologize. My system just wasn't cooperating today with my fax system on the back end. So I apologize for that.
Well, no,
I hope I explained it okay.
It happens, but yes, it did. So let me... So, Julie, thank you. And that was good recovery there. Sometimes, yeah, it doesn't always go as smoothly as we'd like. Yeah. But, I think, the point is that you do have, a variety of tools available to you that can be used to automate a lot of different things. So a lot of those tedious things you have to do every day, you can automate them with the image manager jobs to get stuff just indexed. I mean, just getting all those documents into the archive is a huge, time saver. And there's a big return on the investment there as well. Being able to route documents for approvals and based on various conditions, again, that's, it's a great time saver, and it keeps you from losing track of things. So, as Julie indicated, if something sits there for, too long, you can alert people that, hey, someone needs to take a look at this and see why this is sitting there, or, hey, let's give it another try and see if it can't go through. But anyway, at this point, I think what we're going to do is open up for questions. I think Christy's been monitoring the Q&A box. So Christy, what you got for us?
All right, so we've got first I want to go over a question that came up in the chat during the webinar, and just ask it out loud and answer it so everybody's aware of it. Nancy had a good question of, is this version of UnForm available with SX.e versions prior to CSD? And the answer to that is yes. And then we have also an anonymous question that's come in the Q&A bank. And the first one here is there any additional setup required in my ERP?
Yes, there is. So well, let me back up. For some things, yes. For some things, no. To do the AP automation piece, to actually push a transaction into your ERP, you know, it's a little different based on what ERP you're using. But you know, you got to be be aware that part numbers have to be cross-referenced. So if the part number on the invoice, if it doesn't exist anywhere in your ERP, then you're not speaking the same language. So you got to get part numbers cross-referenced. Your unit of measures need to be clean. It's the same kind of exercise you'd go through if you're implementing EDI with someone as well. So you got to synchronize part numbers and those kinds of things for it to work the way it's supposed to. Now, again, with other ERPs, you may just be pushing in totals only. So, that part is not, necessarily required. So just, it depends on the ERP, and that's the answer.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul. The next question that we've come in is, does Image Manager only use OCR?
So no, it doesn't. So let me see if I can bring my screen back up here. So if we look in Image Manager, let me pull up an example here. So
I think we've still got Julie's screen being shared, so you might have to take it back if you want to show something.
Okay. Did it just take a minute for it to come up? Because
it doesn't show that you're sharing your screen yet.
okay. Well, the answer is no. So what we see typically today, again, I'm talking primarily about vendor invoices at this point, is if the document's been generated by an application, it's typically today it's a PDF with a text layer on it. That is the best situation, because that we can just read the text right off of that document. You don't have to run OCR against it to get that data. We do have an OCR engine built in. So if it is an image, it will run OCR if it's not able to read the text. And we've also recently introduced a new method as well. So we've got the ability to pull text from the PDF. We've got a built-in OCR engine that we use, and then we've got a third option. If the built-in OCR engine isn't picking it up, we have the ability to plug in Amazon's OCR engine, which is a very powerful OCR tool. And we've actually got it, in some cases, it's actually read handwriting, which is amazing, but we have the ability to do that as well. So the goal is, get the text from the PDF. If you can't do it, we run, the built-in OCR engine against it. And if that doesn't work, we can actually force it to go through the Amazon tool to be able to get that data.
Great. And I'd also say to supplement that, the standard reading of barcodes and things of that nature are absolutely part of the functionality in Image Manager for things on the other side with order entry, a lot of those proof of delivery tickets. So just to add on there. Now it looks like we've got one last question that's come in, and it's an anonymous question. Before I read that, if anybody else has any questions, please do drop them into the Q&A bank, and we'll address those before we sign off here today. So the last question that I'm seeing is, how does Image Manager validate the extracted data for accuracy?
Well, there's good questions. There's a couple ways, a couple things that can happen. One, we can, if you have, a document that has line detail and totals and things, we can add up the the totals, the line totals, make sure they foot to the invoice total so we can do the math on the document, validate that we've got that data accurately. We can also run other types of validations as well. So as a document comes in, we can validate that the purchase order vendor number combination exists in your ERP. So we know that document actually exists out there. So we can validate, well, as you saw, whether or not a document's already been processed, so we can detect duplicates. So there's a lot of different ways to validate that data to make sure that we're getting all that stuff as accurately as possible.
Great. And it looks like right now that's all the questions that have come in. And Paul, if you don't mind sharing your screen one more time with the contact information, and we can read that off.
Sure.
If not, I can always type it into the chat.
All right. So it's indicating that it's shared. Are you not seeing it?
Okay, we're seeing Gloria's Q&A slide. So
gotcha.
I'll just type our information into the chat window. We've got Paul Buchel, and his email address is paulb@synergetic-data.com. And then Julie Zindel with Central Data, and her email address, oh, I want to make sure I get that right. It is J Zindel. Yes, J Zindel, ZINDLE @centraldata.com. And then myself, Christy Mitchum, and my email address is Christy, KRISTY @synergeticdata.com. And again, I will pop those into the chat window here momentarily.
Christy, it looks like we did get one more question in.
Great.
The training and support is, if you work with Julie's group, they'll take care of that for you. If you're working with us, we provide the training and the support you need, to be able to do to learn it and be able to do what you need to do.
Great.
Okay. Gloria, I think we're done. You ready to take it away?
I am indeed. Well, thank you, Paul, Julie, and Christy. It has been a delight, as always, to collaborate and work with you today. And we appreciate you taking us in for a deeper immersion into the nuances of the UnForm solution. Now, with most all of our webinar content, this presentation will also be available on our TUG website. We'll also post it to the appropriate forum board with a link for viewing, and it typically takes no more than 2 business days. Now, our next webinar will be next week, or will be this week, Friday on the 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Andy Weath is going to be joining us and revisiting his TUG Connects 2021 session on thought leadership and what will warehousing and distribution look like in 2025. So watch your inbox for the invitation, and our website always has our upcoming webinar content on it. Now, what we're doing is we're providing a taste of TUG Connects 2021 because we have captured more than 280 plus sessions for your review. So if you didn't get a chance to attend in May, you have plenty of time to still sign up, pay the registration fee, and view until October 31st. So we'd like to invite those of you who are members of TUG to continue this discussion online in the members only forums. And also for those of you who are not yet members, please visit the usergroup.org and join us today. I can tell you, you will not regret it. And the only other thing I have to say, as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap, folks. See you next time.